Hey, this is Kristen.
And this is Aaron. And this is Drive Mode Show.
Hey, Aaron, let's talk about set and forget it cars today. Do you know what that is?
I'm assuming it's vehicles that you can get in it, set it up how you want, and then you never have to think about it again?
Yep, cars and trucks that you can set and forget and are easy to drive.
So yeah, it sounded really smart.
You are really smart.
We talked about this before.
This is for people who don't want to fiddle with the controls and figure out they want to get in their vehicle and drive.
Right. So what we've noticed, because we drive so many cars, is that some manufacturers and some specific models from those manufacturers, you can get into them. The factory defaults are awesome. You just position the seat, the steering wheel, and the mirrors and drive it, and probably never delve into any of the settings and menus, right?
Right.
Whereas other ones, you'll be in those menus constantly trying to figure out, how do I turn that off? How do I change that? Why isn't that staying that way every time I get in the car? Those sorts of things. So that's kind of what we're aiming for here. Just kind of give a off the top of our head our rundown of what vehicles are like that, which hopefully would give you out there an idea of what manufacturers and what vehicles to look for if that's going to be a huge peeve for you. So, Kristen, you had you were talking a pretty good list before we started recording, so I think you should kick this off.
All right, so my number one choice for the set it and forget it is the Ram 1500. It's so easy to drive, and I have to say it's probably my favorite set of vehicles in every trim to use the audio controls, because they have the right number of knobs and they've got those little toggle switches on the outside or the inside of the steering wheel that allows you to switch stations so easily. If you've got Sirius or XM, you can just toggle one channel at a time, which is so fun for me because I might just want to go through the whole spectrum and see what I feel like listening to.
So for those wondering, what she's talking about is on the back side of the steering wheel. So you're holding the steering wheel where your hands are right here. There's these toggles. On the left side, you switch stations. So you go on this side, which on the camera probably looks like this side. But anyway, on your left hand, you're moving those stations and or tracks if you're playing off of a playlist or something. On the right side, you're controlling volume. It is pretty cool if you remember that. Otherwise, if you're like me, you'll hit the wrong one every time because you'll forget it as you're doing it, just offhand. But the only rival I could come up with for the Ram 1500 in trucks for set and forget, is the Ford F-150, because it drives really intuitively. So the F-150 has the advantage of being the lightest of the trucks on the road, and all of its weight is low because it's light body weight. That's how they lightened it, right, with the aluminum bodywork. And so the F-150 out of all the pickup trucks drives like a sedan. So it drives a lot smaller than it is, and so everything about it feels intuitive. And then things like the Sync 3 audio, the voice activation controls, all of those things are just stellar right off the bat. Like there's no fooling around to try to figure it out. It just works. So really well done.
And I felt the same way about the GMC Sierra, actually. That's one that we hadn't talked about before, but it pops into my mind because when I drove the new heavy duty last year, they have all these camera controls, and it was super easy to figure out which button to push for which camera angle. And I think that's key for people who don't want to fool with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with the Silverado, I drove the 2500. It was the same thing. Now, it was a big truck, and it felt like a big truck, so it didn't have the half-ton, the simplicity of a half-ton, which can be more car-like. It had to have that heavy-duty underpinning, but it's very true. Everything is pretty much straight across the board. Moving away from trucks, though, my next choice for really intuitive and easy and don't set it and forget it would be the current crop of minivans, especially the Toyota Sienna. When I had that, I got into it. I literally just adjusted the mirrors and the seat. Everything else just happened. I didn't have to change anything. It was awesome.
It's magical.
I know. I just wish Toyota would get rid of that stupid cruise control dongle thing from the bottom of the steering wheel. It's terrible.
The dongle. If you're listening, Toyota, I don't know if you call it a dongle, but Aaron doesn't like it.
I think that's actually the official term for those, isn't it?
Really?
Anything that comes off the a stick that comes off of the column isn't it always a dongle? I've never heard a different term for it.
I don't trust you since you call seat heaters bun warmers.
Yeah.
That's not
and
official yet.
The hazard lights, the four ways, I call those Duke's lights.
Duke's lights? Dukes of Hazzard?
Duke's of Hazzard. They're hazard lights. Duke's lights.
This is what makes you awesome, Aaron. All these little inside references. Now, I think the minivans I think they're set up so that they will be easy to drive. I mean, it goes along with the personality of a minivan. The Honda Odyssey, the Chrysler Pacifica, the Toyota Sienna, they're set up for you to get in and drive. Mm-hmm.
Well, and they're marketed that way because the person driving that vehicle there's a lot more going on, right? We know this from personal experience. I have 3 kids, all of them 10 or under, and we own a minivan. And when you get in that car with all those kids, you're not really thinking about driving. Like, you don't want to think about all the dumb details of driving. You're thinking about, what are they doing back there? Did something just get destroyed? Why are you making faces at the car next to us? That guy looks like a gangster. You know.
Stop fighting. Stop complaining. Stop whining. Stop spilling the crackers all over the back seat.
Right.
Yeah.
Looking in the rear view to check what's behind you, just in time to see the fountain of apple juice. Not personal experience at all.
Yeah, that reminds me of the time my son opened up one of those little round plastic packages of watermelon. I think he's probably 3, and just watermelon juice everywhere. Oh my gosh. It's hard not to lose it in those situations.
Gotta check the eyebrows. Okay.
Raising eyebrows in automotive. The next
what else you got for set and forgets?
I am thinking about the Honda Pilot and the Honda Passport, which was new. You know, they did a whole bunch of renovations to it last year, and it's so easy to drive. I think Honda does a really good job of laying out their controls.
So the Passport is a smaller Pilot, right? That's basically what they built.
2-row.
But it's more than that because it has some elements of the CRV in it. And the CRV is a bestseller for really good reason. You know, it just has so many smart things built into it, and that are perfect for that particular segment. And some of those apply to the slightly larger Passport segment. And so the Passport and the Pilot, and in some ways the CRV, but especially the Passport and the Pilot for families, there's so many things in there that are just designed to be easy. In 2 segments that are known for that. You know, like the Pilot's competing against the Traverse, the Telluride, the Palisade, the Highlander. It's competing against vehicles that are all really good. So I would totally back you up on that. That's a good choice. Downer choices are most of the European brands, especially the Germans, because as Americans, we expect certain things and they often don't show up in those cars. So Audi, for example, good luck having like seat warmers and seat coolers and having an easy, quick infotainment system as a default. You have to go way up the packages first. With BMW, and honestly, including the Lexus you're sitting in, any vehicle with a command knob for the interface
Or
or the
touchpad.
mouse equivalent is going to be terrible. You're going to have a rough time with that infotainment.
Yeah, it's not ideal. You know, this is a 2020 LX. It's one of my favorite sedans on the market for comfort because it's absolutely gorgeous inside. It feels like you're sitting in a wonderful massage chair. But if you're looking for the heated steering wheel control, you have to go into the screen and go a couple layers in to find it, and I just don't think that's convenient. You also can't tune the stereo with one knob. It has like a button here, or you can scroll through the presets. It's just not simple, and I think that's important.
Yeah, and I will say though that a couple of brands, and I expect it'll go across the board sooner than later, they have voice-activated voice control now that has vastly simplified some of those problems. So with BMW, for example, I had the 7 Series not too long ago, and you can just say, "Hey BMW," and talk to it. Apologies to those that might be sitting in a BMW right now and I just activated it.
Sorry.
We are seeing some steps where technology is catching up and making itself easier, which is a good thing.
I think so too.
Right.
I think auto manufacturers, for the most part, are generally trying to find out what's going to cause the least or the fewest distractions on the road. And in some cases, they're trying to get away from physical knobs, and I don't think that that's always the answer. I think sometimes you need a knob to turn it really quickly and easily.
Mm-hmm. So, circling back, we talked about the Ram 1500. My one only complaint with that truck is I had the Laramie Longhorn edition with the huge screen.
Mm-hmm.
So when they put that huge screen in, they delete a whole section of buttons that would otherwise be there. So they get rid of all those buttons are things like the seat warmers, seat coolers, steering wheel heat. They now become virtual buttons on the screen, but at that point require 2 taps to activate. So you have to open that screen and then go to, seat warmer or whatever to turn it on, which it's not terrible, but it's a step backwards in my mind.
I agree. It'd be nice if you could say, "Hey Ram, turn on my seat warmers.
Right. That would be cool.
Turn on my bun warmers. Turn on my steering wheel heater."
Drive me to...
Pretty soon we're going to have
Back up
night
that trailer
riders.
so I look like pro.
I'm going to summon my car via my watch.
I think I told you before that is what's going to sell automated vehicles, right? Is the laziness factor. When
Yep.
when you can pull up to the front door of Walmart or whatever and you can say, "Okay, car, go park yourself."
Of Walmart. Whoa.
What? Okay, any other set and forgets?
That's all I have for now. But for people who are not car enthusiasts, people who don't want to dig through the instructions to figure out how to work the controls of their vehicle, it's important to know which vehicles are going to be the easiest for them to drive. Jump in, it's like a TV dinner. You stick it in the microwave and you eat it. Just get in the car and you go.
Yep. So we often talk about safety, and I will say that as far as I can in my head recall, every teen vehicle, so every vehicle I'd recommend to young people, all the entry levels, the Forte and the Corolla and the so ons, all of those seem to be pretty intuitive outside of technology. So with the technology, they're kind of hit and miss sometimes, but it's mostly about how are you going to use the technology. Some of them focus on you plug your phone in and your phone does most of the work. Some of them, the car itself, the vehicle's infotainment's doing the work. But outside of that, they're almost all ergonomic as far as you get in and you drive it. So that's a good thing, because what the new buyer today expects becomes what everybody expects 10 years from now.
I agree. Well, I think that's a great list, Aaron.
All right. It was a good show.
Good show. This is Kristen.
And this is Aaron. And this has been Drive Mode Show. Talk to you soon.